So here's a wild story about AI that nobody's talking about. Right now, every major tech company in the world, Google, Microsoft, Meta, everyone, is desperately fighting over these $40,000 AI chips. They're all begging one company, Nvidia, to take their money. Companies are waiting months just to get their hands on them. It's absolute chaos. But while everyone's losing their minds, Amazon's doing something absolutely insane in Texas. They looked at this whole situation and basically said, you know what? We're done waiting. What happened next is probably the biggest plot twist in tech this year. Here's what's actually going down. Amazon's building these new AI chips in the most un-Silicon Valley place possible, just a regular office building in North Austin. No fancy labs, no massive factory, just a bunch of engineers getting stuff done. And get this, it's actually working better than anyone expected. They've come up with this chip called Trainium 2. Yeah, I know, tech companies and their crazy names, right? Anyway, so the numbers are kind of ridiculous. We're talking 4 times faster than their last version, 3 times more memory, and they're already shipping these things to their data centers in Ohio. The timing couldn't be more perfect. Nvidia's so backed up with orders, they just had to tell their investors, yeah, we're gonna be playing catch up for a while. But here's where it gets interesting. Amazon's not just throwing another chip into the mix, they're building this whole ecosystem around it. Remember that massive $8 billion they just dropped on that AI company Anthropic? That wasn't just Amazon throwing money around. That was them making sure their new chips had a major customer right out of the gate. Pretty clever, huh? The funny thing is, the hardest part isn't even making the chip, it's getting people to actually use it. You see, everyone in AI is used to using Nvidia's software called CUDA. It's like the industry standard. So Amazon's building their own version called Neuron SDK, and somehow they're actually convincing companies to switch over. This is such an Amazon move. And by the way, remember when they basically invented cloud computing 15 years ago? Everyone thought they were crazy then too, but they've got this habit of looking at expensive tech they depend on and going, nah, we can do this better ourselves. First it was their data centers, then Intel's chips, and now they're coming for Nvidia's crown. But they're not burning bridges. Amazon's still buying Nvidia's latest chips, still keeping those relationships warm. They know this is a long game. Through AWS, they're building what they call an AI supermarket. Want to train your own AI? Use existing models? They've got you covered, and now they've got the chips to power it all. The numbers are pretty compelling too. Amazon's saying you get 30% better performance for your money compared to what's out there. They're not trying to be the fastest, they're trying to be the smartest choice. And with their massive AWS infrastructure and seemingly endless resources, they might just pull it off. Anthropic's been putting these chips through their paces, training some serious AI models on them. When their chief compute officer says they're impressed with the price-performance ratio, that's not just corporate speak. These are the people building some of the most advanced AI systems in the world, and they're choosing to use Trainium 2. The software ecosystem is growing faster than anyone expected. Amazon's built tools to help companies move their AI workloads over from Nvidia. Need to optimize your code? They've got that covered too. It's all part of making the switch as painless as possible. The market impact is already huge. While Nvidia's stock might be soaring, data center managers are finally getting options. When one company controls 80% of the AI chip market, any solid alternative starts looking pretty good. And Amazon's not just offering an alternative, they're offering one that's ready to go right now, while people are waiting months for Nvidia chips. The way Amazon's handling custom AI models is pretty clever. Most companies don't want off-the-shelf AI, they want to train their own models with their own data. That's exactly what Trainium 2 was built for. While Nvidia's chips are great at running AI models, Amazon designed theirs to be training powerhouses. They're thinking about scale in a completely different way too. When most companies talk about AI infrastructure, they're thinking racks of servers. Amazon's thinking entire data centers. They've got this vision where thousands of chips work together like one massive computer, and they're actually making it happen. The impact on AI startups is huge. These smaller companies that couldn't afford Nvidia's hardware, they're flocking to AWS to use Trainium 2. It's opening up advanced AI development to companies that couldn't even think about it before. Some startups are cutting their training costs by more than half. The environmental angle is interesting too. Data centers already use about 1% of the world's electricity, and AI training takes a big chunk of that. Trainium 2's efficiency isn't just good for the bottom line, it's actually reducing how much power these AI systems need. The competition's definitely noticed. Nvidia's not sitting still, they're rushing to improve their own stuff. Google's pushing harder on their TPU program. Even Intel's trying to get back in the game. But Amazon's got this perfect mix of hardware know-how, cloud infrastructure, and customer relationships that's hard to match. And the innovation keeps coming. The Amazon Austin team's already got their next moves planned out. They're not just thinking about faster chips, they're rethinking how entire data centers should work. When you're Amazon and you've got both the hardware and the cloud platform, you can do things that other companies can't even try. What's really changing the game is how Amazon's handling the pricing. While Nvidia's chips are selling for whatever people will pay, and right now they'll pay almost anything, Amazon's playing the long game. They're offering these chips as part of AWS, so companies can just switch over without buying expensive hardware. The performance in real-world testing is turning heads. For certain types of AI training, especially large language models, Trainium 2 isn't just cheaper, it's actually faster. When you're paying by the hour for compute time, that speed difference adds up fast. Amazon's also solved one of the biggest headaches in AI development: scaling up. Want to train a bigger model? Need more computing power? On AWS, it's just a few clicks. No waiting months for hardware, no dealing with chip shortages. That's the kind of flexibility that Nvidia just can't match right now. The impact on the AI industry is bigger than just chips. Companies that were holding back on AI projects because of hardware costs are jumping in. Research labs that couldn't afford Nvidia's prices are expanding their work. It's like Amazon found a way to democratize high-end AI computing. But here's what's really interesting. They're not trying to replace Nvidia completely. They know different workloads need different solutions. Need to train a massive language model? Trainium 2's your chip. Want to run inference at scale? They've got you covered. It's about giving customers options they never had before. The way they're handling networking between chips is pretty smart too. Traditional setups hit bottlenecks when moving this much data around. Amazon's figured out how to connect thousands of these chips so they can work together seamlessly. That's the kind of innovation that only comes from running one of the world's biggest cloud platforms. The market's reacting in ways nobody expected. Those massive AI companies that were stuck waiting for Nvidia shipments, they're starting to split their workloads between both platforms. It's not about replacing Nvidia anymore. It's about having options, and Amazon's making sure they're a pretty attractive option. The cost savings are getting hard to ignore. Training large AI models used to cost millions in compute time alone. Now companies using Trainium 2 through AWS are seeing their bills drop significantly. For startups and research labs, that's the difference between doing the work and not doing it at all. What's really clever is how Amazon's handling the transition. They know companies have invested years in Nvidia's CUDA platform, so they've built tools that make moving workloads to Trainium 2 as smooth as possible. It's not perfect yet, but it's getting better fast. The power efficiency story is turning out to be huge. Data centers are hitting their power limits. You can't just keep cramming in more energy-hungry chips. Amazon designed Trainium 2 with this in mind from the start. More computing power doesn't have to mean more electricity bills, and they're not slowing down. While everyone's talking about Trainium 2, Amazon's already working on what's next. They've got this roadmap for making AI computing more accessible, more efficient, and more powerful. When you control both the hardware and the cloud platform, you can move pretty fast. The industry's learning some interesting lessons from all this. It turns out you don't need the absolute fastest chip to win. You need the right combination of performance, price, and accessibility. Amazon's proving that with the right approach, you can challenge even the biggest players in tech.